This is CBC Vancouver News.
The majority of the people in Surrey still want Surrey Police to continue.
The SPS say what they're going to do. The RCMP have always demonstrated what they can do.
Surrey councillors vote for a plan to keep the RCMP. The final decision, though, is with the Public Safety Minister.
There will be no increases to ICBC's overall basic rate for the next 2 years.
The province requests an insurance rate freeze.
It's hard to see if this is truly justified.
But it's set to lose a lot of money.
In the 21st century, people shouldn't be spending so much time.
And why access to a direct flight is so vital for thousands of British Columbians traveling to India every year. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dan Burritt. We begin tonight in East Vancouver, where a large house fire has sent at least one person to hospital with serious injuries. The on-duty fire chief tells CBC News the two-alarm blaze broke out at a home on Nanaimo and East 27th around 9 p.m. tonight. He says one woman was rescued from a balcony on the second floor and has been taken to hospital in critical condition. Two other people are being treated for smoke inhalation.
I jumped out of bed, looked on my balcony, and I just see this mushroom cloud of smoke, and it was just insane. Immediately ran, and I'm like, okay, something's wrong. When I got here, I saw probably over 8 fire trucks. There were a ton of policemen.
It's not yet clear what started this fire, and we'll bring you any updates later in the show. Over to Surrey now, where a majority of city councillors tonight voted to submit a plan for keeping the RCMP to BC's Public Safety Minister. That's taking the next step in reversing Surrey's adoption of a municipal police force.
All in favour? Opposed?
The decision comes after a city report estimated it would cost taxpayers $235 million more to switch from the RCMP to a city force. It recommended council endorse plans to keep the RCMP for the city.
It's no secret that, in my opinion, the RCMP has boot dragged through this whole process, which has added a considerable cost to the taxpayer.
The majority of the people in Surrey still want Surrey Police to continue. So,
Bear in mind that the city pays for both sides of this debate. So the longer we go, the more we spend.
The report will now be passed on to Mike Farnworth, who has the final say on any policing changes in BC. Well, it may be a relief to drivers in this province. The BC government wants to freeze ICBC rates for another 2 years. It's to address affordability. But as Mira Baines reports, others are worried as the insurer is set to lose hundreds of millions of dollars by the end of the year.
This marks 5 straight years in a row with no rate increases and some of the highest rebates in Canada.
Premier David Eby says ICBC will be going to the BC Utilities Commission to request a rate freeze to help with affordability. The province says drivers will be able to save, on average, about $400 a year.
Just with the cost of living overall right now, anything to pay less, especially to insurance companies, would be ideal.
The move comes as people are squeezed financially, and the forecast economic growth is expected to slow in the new year.
And with this latest action, basic insurance rates will now be at their lowest level since 2014.
But there are questions over the financial health of ICBC.
They're doing it in the context of a corporation that is on track to lose $250 million.
When Eby was Attorney General, he blamed $1.3 billion in losses on the previous Liberal government, calling the situation at ICBC a dumpster fire.
This is quite simply a financial dumpster fire.
The NDP government made changes to no-fault insurance. Yet to benefit drivers, the government brought in a one-time gas rebate of $110 earlier this year. It went to 3.5 million people to offset surging gas prices. ICBC also issued 2 COVID-19 rebates with a combined average of $300 in 2021 due to a reduction in claims.
When you look at ICBC's financials, it's hard to see if this is truly justified or if we aren't simply putting pressure down the road at a time where this could potentially come back to bite us.
Even if the commission disagrees with the rate freeze, Cabinet can override the decision. The 2-year rate freeze takes the BC NDP government to the next election. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
To health news now. The province's push to get more people vaccinated against the flu has made some headway. It says more than 77,000 people got the jab recently. More than half of those shots were given this weekend when health authorities took part in a vaccine walk-in clinic blitz. It was meant to encourage families, especially those with young children, to get a shot before the holidays.
There's a real opportunity here in advance of people going away for holidays or having people come for holidays to get vaccinated. There's going to be more opportunities this week. We're continuing to push drop-ins. We're going to do more this coming weekend. So we encourage parents to vaccinate their children and everyone else to get vaccinated against influenza as well.
Even with that weekend blitz, though, only about 30% of British Columbians older than 6 months have gotten a flu shot so far. 2022 has been a record-breaking year when it comes to the number of students leaving Hong Kong for Canada. Thousands have received Canadian study permits this year, with many deciding to settle here on the Lower Mainland. Our John Hernandez has more on the mounting exodus.
It's kind of depressed, and actually, of course, many people furious like I do.
Starting fresh hasn't been easy, but this 20-year-old student from Hong Kong knows life is even harder for many people back home.
Hong Kong is taken over by Chinese government, so no one wants to stay in Hong Kong for a long time.
Lily is among 8,000 Hong Kong students who have come to Canada this year. CBC News has agreed not to publish her last name. She fears speaking out against the Chinese government publicly could put her friends and family in Hong Kong at risk. Since 2019, thousands of pro-democracy advocates and protesters have been arrested in the region.
The freedom of speech is lost in Hong Kong. Few news media shut down, and I think they kind of succeed that they really take over Hong Kong government. I think that I don't have future in Hong Kong.
More than 100,000 people have left Hong Kong amid China's growing control of the territory, and Canada appears to have become the destination of choice. In 2022, Ottawa issued more study permits to Hong Kongers than ever before, more than doubling numbers from 2019 and 2020, while beating out other popular destinations like the UK and Australia. The surge came after Canada announced it would fast-track permanent residency for students from Hong Kong.
Canada responded at a very good timing, and the process time pretty fast.
This advocate says the policy is attracting people of all ages.
All the talented people, all the people with resources are leaving Hong Kong.
And an already robust community here has made Metro Vancouver an attractive destination.
In the last 2 years, the Hong Kongers community in Vancouver actually lend a helping hand to help these newcomers. Even though we don't know each other, our community helped them to find a place to stay.
The permanent residency pathway will be in place for another 4 years as more and more people from the region look for a new place to call home. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still with travel, every year thousands of Punjabis in BC take the trip back to India. For some, it can mean a long journey lasting numerous days. Well, Canada has already signed a new agreement with India for better flights. As Saurabh Sandhu explains, some say a key region was left out of that deal.
It's a new agreement that opens the door for more flights to India. Previously, only 35 flights per week were allowed. Now that number is unlimited. But some say the new rules don't make life all that much easier for the massive Punjabi community here in Canada.
You say you have a 1 million strong Punjabi diaspora, and what you signed on the paper is totally different.
Mohit Danju is the spokesperson for Fly Amritsar initiative. It's a group advocating for a direct flight between Canada and the Indian city of Amritsar in the Punjab state.
The city has an international standard airport. It has a Cat 3B landing system that we have in all the big airports like YVR or Toronto Airport.
Currently, direct flights from Canada only go to Delhi. But with the new agreement, 5 more cities will be added to the list. So that doesn't shorten a lengthy trip to Punjab.
It's a long flight, and in between, if there is a 5-6 hour stopover, then you can assume like 24 hours journey. and the next journey is almost 8 hours.
The connecting flights from Delhi to Amritsar are also not much of an option.
7 hours you can sit at the airport and wait.
In the 21st century, people shouldn't be spending so much time. You take a 14-hour flight to reach Delhi, then you're making a 10-hour road trip. It doesn't make any sense.
Last month, 4 Canadian MPs wrote to Air Canada and Air India, voicing support for direct flights between Canada and Amritsar. And 14,000 people signed a petition pushing for the flights. The Canadian government says they tried to get the flights on the table.
Unfortunately, the Indian government was not ready yet, even though we've asked.
They were able to get Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Kolkata, and Mumbai, but they weren't able to do Amritsar, even though there's over 1 million Canadians of Punjabi descent.
The last agreement between the two countries was signed in 2011. And with the latest agreement leaving Amritsar out, it could be a while before those like Dhanju could fly directly from Canada to Amritsar.
So imagine like the population people living in Vancouver has to drive all the time to Kelowna to take the flight.
Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver police are asking for your help to identify a drowning victim, and they've released a video in hopes someone will come forward.
She appears to be a black woman in her 30s. She had distinctive freckles on her face, and she had short black hair that was tied back in a bun. There was a blue inflatable kayak that was found overturned in the water near her.
The woman was found floating in the water off Spanish Banks on September 29th. A vial of insulin was also found nearby, and the victim may have suffered a medical emergency before she fell out of her kayak and drowned. Investigators believe the woman may have been a newcomer to the country or a traveler. Anyone with information is asked to contact Vancouver Police. RCMP, meanwhile, are offering $100,000 to anyone with information about the alleged attack at a coastal Gaslink construction site earlier this year. Police say in the early hours of February 17th, an unidentified group of about 20 people attacked security guards and employees at the site 60 kilometers south of Houston. Heavy construction equipment was also allegedly used by the attackers to cause millions of dollars in damage to other machinery. Mounties say they haven't arrested anyone yet because they don't have enough evidence.
I do hope that this reward will entice those individuals to come forward and fill in those missing pieces. There's been an incredible amount of work done to date, and that work will continue.
The reward is being paid for by the Independent Contractors and Business Association and Crime Stoppers. A group of SFU graduate students protested on campus today to raise awareness about their funding crunch. The university generally offers scholarships for grad students that cover their basic costs. But according to the demonstrators, the current funding model does not take into account the rise in the cost of living.
We've talked to a lot of students who are having to take 2, 3 jobs, either on campus or outside of campus, just to pursue their studies.
The students say they now want the university to give them a minimum annual stipend of $32,000 after their tuition deductions. Holiday season also happens to be porch pirate season. And as any online purchases you make start arriving, you should know that parcel theft is alive and well. So New Westminster police are ready to bait some boxes. Frontline officers, along with community members, are going to strategically place bait packages on doorsteps and in mailboxes around the city. Each package contains technology that will help police find anyone who tries to steal it, and they say they'll be using those packages year-round.
As you can see behind me, I have a whole table of packages behind us here. These are not bait packages. However, a bait package could take on any appearance. They could be a large cardboard box, they could be a bubble mailer, they could be an envelope. The effort behind this is to help us identify and arrest package thieves.
BC Ferry says it is gearing up for holiday traffic, adding more sailings to handle the big demand. From December 22nd to January 2nd, more than 150 new sailings will be added on routes that include the Lower Mainland to and from Vancouver Island and the Sunshine Coast. Ferry says the most popular travel days for those routes are December 23rd, 26th, and 27th. People are being urged to book in advance, arrive early, and yes, expect delays. And just in time for the holiday travel season, YVR is expanding one of its programs designed to get you through security faster. Passengers traveling within Canada can now use YVR Express. It allows you to book a time to enter security for free, potentially avoiding long wait times. Before, it was only open to passengers flying to the U.S. It's still not being offered on international trips, though. You can book with YVR Express up to 3 days before your flight, and again, it's free.
Just shows that we have work to do.
Rising carbon emissions and fewer ways to offset them. Now, some BC forest management companies, though, are helping people make up for their carbon footprint. That story is next. And hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Thanks for being here. For the past 6 years, a group of students in Alberta have been working on sustainable projects. So far, they've built a wind turbine, a biofuel reactor, and a solar-powered golf cart. Now they're converting an old school bus into a net-zero tiny home.
It's a quiet winter day on the snow-covered streets of Mirnam, a village of just over 300 people. But inside New Mirnam School's garage, it's bustling with activity. And the focus today is this old school bus.
Now the kitchen is going to be here.
Grades 7 to 12 students are converting it into a net zero tiny home.
This year we're securing the walls, completely decorating it, putting on a deck and solar panels, making it road ready and ready for people to live in it.
Just down the hall is a hidden oasis. The aquaponics system is operated by students like Hannah Sarouk and supplies leafy greens, which are sold at markets and the local restaurant.
It's really interesting to grow your own produce and have a product in the end. And it's something that not many people get to experience in high school. So it's really interesting work and I really enjoy doing it.
Okay, so here's a little marker here.
Oh!
The link between the two sustainable projects and many others is a teacher known as Mr. T. When his students wanted to learn more about climate change and sustainability, he took note. For the past 6 years, he's been giving students hands-on experience, and they're loving it.
So the spindle sander goes up and down?
And his students aren't the only ones taking notice. In September, Mr. T was one of 2 teachers recognized by the Prime Minister for his use of technology in education.
You know, the story about a small town boy goes to Ottawa to meet the Prime Minister, it's awesome. I can't express in words how awesome that was.
The school projects have also led to them being more involved in their community, leading them towards town council, impacting policy and bylaws.
What we are proposing.
Over a week ago, junior high students did an energy audit on their school garage and presented a solution to make it more efficient. Johanna Wagstaffe spent last year working on a chicken coop program. When she and other students presented their findings to council, the village changed its bylaw to allow backyard chickens.
That was really amazing to see that just a small project that started out had that impact in the town.
And the village's mayor says the students' projects have encouraged residents to make their own changes.
The power bill, growing half flowers, half vegetables, recycling centers we're trying to set up. It's made a big impact with making people realize what we could be here, what we could do.
We have our team net zero.
Quite a legacy for a small town teacher, but like the best teachers often do, he defers credit to the students.
I really believe that we empower these young students and they're going to turn into our leaders.
Travis McEwen, CBC News, Mirnam.
BC is seeing growth in the demand for carbon credits. The market has existed in this province for about 20 years and helps people and businesses make up for their carbon footprint. Our Camille Vernet shows us what this means and how 2 communities hope to move toward more sustainable forestry.
This forest is one of only a handful in BC producing carbon credits.
It fits very nicely with our Indigenous laws to look after the forests and do our part, our responsibility to taking care of it.
This community forest is a partnership between Lil'wat and Squamish nations and the municipality of Whistler. They sell carbon credits by reducing their tree harvest in half.
We generate between 10 to 12,000 tons of CO2 equivalent in offsets on an annual basis.
These carbon credits are then sold to individuals, companies, or government hoping to offset their emissions. For example, when booking a flight, you might be asked if you want to compensate for your carbon emissions by planting trees or by preventing a tree from being cut down. BC is leading the way when it comes to verifying projects to make sure they are truly emission reducing.
It was actually a very challenging process. In some ways, I do hope it gets easier, but I think if you sort of weaken those regulations and make it easier to access these types of programs, you might not have either as valuable an offset or you may not have a true offset.
The offsets program could be an opportunity for rural BC communities
to be funded to change the way things are happening. And right now, I don't think we are utilizing that to the extent that we should.
But there is a risk that comes with storing carbon in the forest.
Get a credit, for example, by not harvesting an area, and so it becomes older, and then it becomes more susceptible to a major fire. And we're seeing this happening in California.
Despite those challenges, the carbon market is still on the rise. On Vancouver Island, Mosaic, a forestry company, started its own carbon offset program in March.
Big Coast Forest Climate Initiative is a deferral of 40,000 hectares of mostly primary forests on the coast of British Columbia for at least the next 25 years.
So is this a solution to climate change?
It's not going to be a help. It just shows that we have work to do. Just ensures us, future for our children to be able to have the same opportunities as my ancestors had.
And he says this alternative approach to forestry can be a path toward reconciliation. Camille Vernet, Radio-Canada, Langford.
Here's a live shot of Canby Street and City Hall. We started foggy, then it was sunny and crisp across the lower mainland today. Johanna will have your BC-wide forecast right after this.
Last week, new figures were released showing Canada's population is now more than 23.5 million, with most of us living in the big cities. This trend is putting a bigger strain than ever before on our cities, forcing municipal leaders to respond. This week, CBC national reporters from across the country will be looking at the problems and the plans of downtown Canada, at the ways our biggest cities have adapted to the 70s. First, Colin Hoth reports on Vancouver, where plans for a convention center on the waterfront herald a new wave of development.
The high-rise building boom of the 60s that created Vancouver's modern skyline came to an end 3 years ago. City planners say they've used that breathing space to draw up some new development rules that will hopefully mold the style of Vancouver in the 80s.
Attempted to achieve much more attention to the human being out on the street, walking around in the downtown, to make it a much more enjoyable place, to emphasize the fact that we wanted the sun not to be blocked off on the streets, that we wanted people both within the buildings and outside the buildings to enjoy themselves much better, to have a better time when they go to work. Ranging from examples that we give people bonuses for providing health facilities, lunchrooms, and other social recreation facilities within buildings, and we give them bonuses for doing a good development that's neighbourly with the rest of the buildings on the street and provides sunlit places for the brown bag people to be able to sit in the lunch hour and enjoy the passing traffic.
The new provincial courthouse complex, running 3 full blocks in the very heart of the city, is emerging as a focal point for much of the impending new development. Some of the commercial developments on the drawing boards incorporate apartment complexes, further extending the existing blend of residential and office development, which keeps Vancouver's downtown core alive even outside of office hours. The plan to build a $200 million convention center here on the waterfront is promoted as another aid to development of a lively and prosperous city center. Planners admit the new wave of downtown development will inevitably accentuate the city's traffic and parking problems as more and more suburban commuters struggle to get in and out of the peninsula in which the central core is located. Pressure is mounting for an early decision to make a start on the often discussed rapid transit system. The availability of these old railway rights-of-way through the suburbs offer the prospect of building the first stage for as little as $200 million. But the aftershock from California's Proposition 13 still ripples up the coast, and there is taxpayer resistance. But planners insist it's the kind of bold investment that Vancouver is going to have to make one day if it is to achieve its potential as possibly the most exciting urban centre in the North American continent. Colin Holt, CBC News, Vancouver.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. Stream holiday episodes of your favorite CBC shows like The Great Canadian Baking Show and other festive films on demand on CBC Gem. Check it out at gem.cbc.ca. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver Inbox and keep connected with us.
Just before we get to our forecast, here's a look at what blanketed Metro Vancouver this morning. Pedestrians along Falls Creek could not see downtown, or at least much of it, from across the water, or Science World just a few blocks away. The Cambie Bridge vanished behind the soupy sky, and you could hear foghorns in the distance, but eventually the fog didn't stick around. Most of it was cooked off by the sun before noon.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Time for our BC-wide weather forecast now with meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe. After that fog got out of there, clear and crisp. And it's amazing that sound it makes as it's doing that.
Yeah, it's literally as it marches on through the strait. Marching, yes.
Yeah.
Fog is quite quick, and so it did make a bit of a whishy noise as it cleared the strait. But yeah, some fog lingering a little longer this morning. It was sort of all swept out by 10:30. High pressure, that Arctic high, is really trapping in that low-level moisture. So there is a risk of it again tomorrow, but things are changing as this cold front tries to slide down the coast. I say tries because I don't think it's going to make it to Metro Vancouver. Watch as I get you through that cold front Tuesday afternoon. We'll see some showers across the island, but it sort of all but dissipates by the time it hits Metro Vancouver. So we'll see some increasing cloud tomorrow. And then high pressure builds right back in for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's Saturday that we'll watch for that next Arctic front sliding down across the province. It has been a dry overall end of fall as we sneak into the beginning of winter. It has already begun the official start to meteorological winter, which is December, January, February. But yeah, it's been a bit on the dry side. Not looking at a lot of precip in the forecast, except for this Saturday event, and I will keep you posted. Temperatures are also going to cool down as we head into next week as that Arctic front comes through, and we're already running a few degrees below seasonal. Here's Thursday and Friday afternoon highs right across the province, all in the minuses. So increasing cloud Tuesday, we bounce right back for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Here's that system I'm watching for Saturday, but we got to keep an eye on Saturday and Sunday because this system wasn't even in the cards yesterday. The model runs didn't even have this low pressure in. Yeah. So, right at this point, I think we've got rain on Saturday, snow changing over to rain, and then on Sundays we get the cold front, rain changing over to snow. So if we get and end off with some snow on the ground as we head into a very cold next week. I'm just saying there could be snow on the ground for Christmas, but it's something to keep our eye on.
Your honesty is one of your best qualities. Still not sure, so we're going to put all these emblems in there.
Yes, still not sure. I'll keep you posted.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
That is your late news for Monday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. Good night.